Welcome to this explainer. Okay, so have you ever noticed how our society constantly pushes us to be social, outgoing, and just perpetually connected? We basically live in a world where a packed calendar is worn as a badge of honor, even if, let's be honest, half of those meetings definitely could have been an email. Preferring your own company is frequently misunderstood as a negative trait. People are so quick to label someone who just wants to spend a Friday night alone as lonely, or they assume they're struggling with social anxiety. But what if I told you that the psychology of highly intelligent individuals tells a completely different story? What if that intense desire for silence isn't a flaw at all, but an actual feature? Today, we're going to explore a really fascinating psychological phenomenon that completely reframes everything we think we know about spending time alone. There is a brutal psychological truth we absolutely need to unpack today. Listen to this. You aren't antisocial, you are simply processing. I mean, that's incredibly validating, isn't it? If you frequently find yourself craving time away from the crowd, it's so crucial to understand that wanting to be alone isn't a sign that you're broken. It's actually a necessary, highly active state for an intelligent brain that is just constantly bombarded with complex inputs. Your brain quite literally requires space to handle the complexity that others simply ignore.
All right, let's dive right into this. Here is our cognitive roadmap for today. We're going to start by defining the solitude effect, then look at organizing the mind's chaos, activating deep problem solving, unpacking metacognition and layered thinking, and finally, protecting your cognitive bandwidth.
Section 1, the solitude effect defined. It is time to reframe isolation and put it exactly where it belongs.
So the solitude effect is a phenomenon where being alone isn't about avoiding others at all. It's about activating the brain's most advanced creative and problem-solving networks. The crucial point here is this. If you don't take time for this isolated state, you aren't just missing out on a little bit of rest. You are actively starving your creative engine. You're denying your brain the specific environment it requires to fire up its most advanced capabilities. Isolation isn't a retreat, you guys. It's a mandatory charging station for your highest level of intellect.
Moving right along to Section 2, organizing the mind's chaos. You see, the highly intelligent mind operates as a natural pattern hunter. It doesn't just passively experience the world. It's constantly collecting data, analyzing behavior loops, and spotting system flaws in real time. And this unfolds in a four-step process. In Step 1, input overwhelm, think about being in a super busy social setting. For a pattern-hunting mind, this environment provides an absolute avalanche of data. It's overwhelming. That brings us to Step 2, solitude and isolation. While most people kind of panic in silence because it forces self-reflection, highly intelligent individuals absolutely crave it. It's the environment where the mind can finally organize all that chaos from Step 1. Moving to Step 3, pattern recognition. The quiet allows the brain to sort through all those behavior loops and system flaws it collected earlier. And finally, Step 4, sudden insight. Have you ever had a brilliant idea that seemed to just come out of nowhere while you were sitting quietly? Well, it didn't come out of nowhere. It was the direct result of your brain finally being free to connect the dots without distraction.
Which brings us to Section 3, activating deep problem solving.
Now, there is a really rare habit among people with extremely high IQs, and it's simply the preference for walking alone. It's not just about the silence, it's about the physical movement combined with the solitude. Psychology shows that this specific combination physically fires up the brain's creative and problem-solving centers in a way that just sitting in a crowded room never, ever could.
Let's break down exactly what happens when you do this. By removing the social noise, you drop into what psychologists call a deeper thinking state. You give your mind the necessary space to wander safely. But here's the most fascinating part. Your brain begins to run internal simulations. You are effectively playing mental chess. Think about this massive contrast for a second. While others are occupying their brains with draining, surface-level small talk about the weather, the intelligent person walking alone is executing complex mental chess to solve problems that nobody even asked them to fix. They're stress-testing ideas, predicting outcomes, and building solutions entirely in their own head.
All right, Section 4, metacognition and layered thinking. Let's actually slow the pacing down just a bit here because we're entering some incredibly deep psychological territory.
Consider the stark contrast in how different minds operate. On one side, we have surface processing. This is how the average person navigates the day, seeing the world in black and white, thinking in straight lines, and relying super heavily on small talk. But on the other side, we have layered thinking. A highly intelligent mind defaults to this. It engages in multi-layered cognition. It instantly sees contradictions and overarching patterns, and it can comfortably hold multiple, sometimes conflicting perspectives simultaneously. Now, when you force a brain built for layered thinking to engage in surface processing, like say making small talk at a party, it actually feels physically draining. It's literally like forcing a supercomputer to run on a completely outdated operating system.
Solitude is the space where your brain is finally allowed to boot back up into its natural, multi-layered state. And that layered thinking leads us straight into this concept, metacognitive IQ. This is basically thinking about thinking, and it is one of the rarest forms of intelligence out there. It's the ability to turn your attention completely inward to practice cognitive detachment. You objectively analyze your own biases, you question your own assumptions, and you edit your reactions. And let me be perfectly clear, this level of deep inward observation is virtually impossible in a crowded room. High IQ individuals absolutely require isolation to cross-train their brain in this way. They use solitude to ensure that their internal logic is actually accurate, rather than just absorbing whatever opinion happens to be popular in the room at that moment.
Which neatly brings us to our final point. Section 5. Protecting your cognitive bandwidth.
The highly self-aware among us realize a really fundamental truth. Constant social noise is incredibly mentally expensive. You only have so much energy in a given day. Look at this choice we all have to make between mentally expensive drains, like endless scrolling and shallow conversations, and compounding energy investments. Every single time you engage in the drains on the left, like the exhausting treadmill of chasing social validation, you are spending your extremely limited cognitive bandwidth. Practicing social and digital minimalism by choosing solitude means you are purposefully cutting off those drains. You're aggressively reallocating your brain power toward the investments on the right: deep learning, building systems, and strategic thinking. Those are the investments that will actually compound over time and yield massive personal growth.
So the core takeaway of this entire explainer is actually pretty simple. Intelligence isn't just about how much you know, it's about how you protect the mind you have. Choosing solitude means you aren't running away from the world. Quite the opposite, actually. You are finally waking up to your own potential. You're stepping out of the noise and into the laboratory where your absolute best ideas are built. When you stop chasing validation and start valuing your own silence, your decisions become cleaner, your focus sharpens, and your mind finally becomes completely your own.
So I want to leave you with this final provocative question to really chew on. Do you see your solitude as a weakness or your greatest competitive advantage? It is definitely time to stop apologizing for your silence. The next time you feel the urge to step away from the crowd, remember that you are simply giving your highly intelligent mind exactly what it needs to process, solve, and create. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and I really hope this empowers you to embrace your solitude as the superpower it truly is.